How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are chatting on some no longer Paris Legion, but in fact the Las Vegas Legion. Yes, they did announce officially on Twitter that that is going to be the name moving into the MW2 season. Now, one of the more interesting things about the Las Vegas Legion is that they have yet to officially announce their roster moving into next year. And with all the, roster rumors out there, it feels like Las Vegas for the moment isn't heavily talked about. And so what I thought would be fun today is that if we look at, we'll take a look at the CDL landscape, pull up the Breaking Point roster builder and build a roster for Las Vegas. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's go ahead and pull up what the CDL landscape looks like for right now. So the things that are in green are the things that are confirmed. You can see the official free agent list down here. We have challenger talent that's listed down here as well. I know there are a lot of rumors, about like Awakening possibly going to Boston Breach, the rumored Florida lineup, the same thing with New York, etc., etc. However, again, none of those things are confirmed. So if that is the case, we will be keeping that in mind, but also looking and saying, hey, if there is a certain player available, maybe they would come to this team. So we're trying to be as realistic as possible, but also not ignoring the fact that just because something is rumored doesn't mean that it is 100%. But you guys can see the rosters that have still yet to make their announcements. Obviously, we have London, Boston, New York, Florida, and last but not least, the Las Vegas Legion. I guess you could say over the past few years, they have actually been the last team. And so that's really what I wanted to focus this video on, is really about how does Las Vegas change the tone, right? Change the tone of the franchise, more specifically, change the tone of the roster, considering that you have a very talented piece to work with, right? We know that Temp had some excellent numbers from last season, put up some great stats, but the roster never really saw a ton of success. I forget how many LAN wins they had, but it had to be like 1 or 2. Without a question, we're out of the runnings before anybody last year. I think that I don't even remember how many points they had, to be honest with you, in the last title. So now moving into this year, if you are Las Vegas Legion, how do we want to start this off, right? If we're the front office, if we get to make the decisions for Las Vegas Legion, being totally understanding of the current landscape right now, what do we do? And for me, at least, I would go for the instant focus on the SMGs. I think that is a huge priority. You have a great, first, second slaying option in somebody like Temp. So I would instantly look at the SMGs. However, I think just in terms of the order at which they will do this, it will actually be more of the main AR. I'm going at this based off of some earlier rumors that were associated between this player and Las Vegas. It sounded like because of a few tweets, maybe those connections are not there. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with this player right now. However, I do wish him the best, and that is Clayster. I think that if you are Las Vegas and he is in fact available, and if he is going to be available, I think that you go for somebody like Clay or you go for somebody like Krim. The fact that either of those two pieces are available, I would jump on it. I really would. Now, I get, the reason why New York is splitting apart from Krim, maybe is because of his internal problems. I think for this roster's sake, I believe that you would go with somebody like Clay because there already have been links there. Temp has talked about, in short, about how, he has had a few discussions and, with I don't remember who it was, whether it was with prior players or if it was just on the flank, but he's talked about how he wants to have, some veteran presence on this roster because that was something that they dramatically lacked with last year's team on the Paris Legion. You had like at 1.3 rookies on the team, I think, alongside Temp. So there's no question he wants to have some veteran presence. Now, I will not ignore the fact that we could easily just do this and call it a day because that is the rumor team outside of Clay, the main AR. But I think that there are some interesting options moving forward with this because, like I said, I think you have Clay and Temp. They would work together in my eyes. I think you have a talented flex, somebody like Clay who's going to direct him, would definitely get the troops in order if we're talking about this Legion team, and obviously has a lot of great history with working with SMGs. He has had tons and tons of success working with younger players, with NYSL last season being a dramatic outlier, but he's worked with players like Hydra. We know what he was able to do with the Dallas Empire. We know what he was able to do with United. He knows how to utilize that talent. Now, at times he has been frustrated by having younger SMGs to work alongside of, younger players, but already starting things off with Temp. I think that this is actually a very solid AR duo alongside of each other from a leadership standpoint, from an in-game perspective, and also from a slang level. If Temp is going to be at his same level of talent, and I think Clay stats last year did not at all mimic what he is able to do in the CDL. I don't understand, honestly, how Clay does not have a team as of yet, unless price could be an issue, and that's something that obviously I'm not an expert in at all. So like I said, I think you easily slide in Clay into this position, so you've got your ARs to work with. It's not necessarily the typical way, but that's the way we're doing it, right? You got your AR set. Now, who do you go for when it comes down to the SMGs? Now, we can take a look at a few options. I know TJ very well could have been linked. I think that Temp has talked about how, you know, if there is somebody that he would like to reunite with, it would be TJ. He's no longer the flex for Boston. I believe that he's going to be trying to run an SMG moving into MW2. So I think that he is absolutely somebody that you consider to put on this team, at least from a speculation standpoint. You could look at a few other guys. Somebody like Pentagram, I think, is actually an option that they should seriously consider. I'm not 100% sure with the rankings of top SMGs and challengers right now. Maybe you wait it out a little bit to see how certain players start things off in MW2. Was the substitute last season for the LA Thieves, no longer is that. He is pursuing options. He's been a top SMG challenger player for a long time. Maybe you give him the call. It sounds like Havoc could be elsewhere. You look down this list. Capsule, I know he had some experience playing with Clay and challengers, had that run with Boston Breach, and had a very electric start to the season, started to tail off a little bit. And I think, honestly, with a new team and a new title, you could see a rejuvenated Capsule return back to the league. If we're talking more about SMGs, I think that, Awakening sounds like he's going to be over in Boston. Skies is going to be, it sounds like, an NYSL. I don't know, like maybe you go for somebody like Yeez. If you are thinking about bringing somebody back, if we're talking about, Paris to Las Vegas, I think the real player that you would call possibly is Johnny. Great in S&D, had some good moments. Again, a player that maybe you want to see in MW2 to possibly give him the call back. Now, the one guy that I think should be given a lot of praise in one of the first opportunities is ASIM. I do. I think that ASIM naturally would fit in very well with these other two. If we are talking about having a more veteran type of roster, ASIM works perfectly here. I think his voice mixed in with Clay, you feel good from an in-game standpoint that this team is going to be able to work together. You have confidence that from a leadership standpoint, it's going to be there. It's just about, do they have the slaying talent? And I get that last year, ASIM had an incredible run to start off the year and then really started to tail off. Was brought to the bench of the LA Gorillas. Maybe you bring back the ASIM and Clay duo that we had with New York back in Cold War. I think that ASIM is a very underrated player, willing to do the dirty work. Didn't have a great end of last year. I totally get it, but there's no doubt he was a major reason why that team saw the success that they did to start off the year. And I think that you do very much consider somebody like ASIM, whether that's TJ and ASIM. I probably wouldn't do that. I think that you'd have too many veterans at that point, maybe not enough slang. I think you go with ASIM and you set up what could be, I don't know, a challenger player. I think that is realistically the option that you look forward if you are Las Vegas to say, hey, we've got the veterans, we've got ASIM, we've got Temp, we've got Clay. Let's pursue an unknown piece. That's why I was talking about the Pentagram pick. I know Venom has been linked possibly to go into the Las Vegas Legion. Had that run with the LA Thieves back in Cold War. That very well could be an option. No, we talked about Capsule. We talked about Johnny. Another one, and again, it wouldn't be easy, but now that this roster is announced, Standy is going to be a part of this team. Maybe you give a call to somebody like Hixie. I know he had just a one series run for the Toronto Ultra because there was a player that was sick, so he had to step in. It essentially felt like Hixie was going to be the instant fill-in for Toronto now that the Afro thing had fallen through. So maybe you give a call to Hixie. I think that would be a very interesting prospect. You give him his first opportunity, price willing, and you move forward that way. Again, not going to be an easy piece to snag, but would without a doubt be a very interesting rookie piece added onto this roster. Maybe you look toward the EU region. I know Wardy has been rumored to possibly going to the London Royal Ravens, maybe joining a team as a substitute. I think that he has a very bright future in the CDL. it would really kind of rely on, in my opinion, London overlooking him dramatically, not even giving him a call, and then maybe Las Vegas over time recognizes, you know what, let's try to bring this guy over, visas, all of that, let's work it out to bring him onto the team. I think at the end of the day, if you are Las Vegas, you go with these three. I think you pick up Clay instantly, then you roll through. If you're looking for another veteran SMG, you go for somebody like ASIM or maybe like a TJ. You move in and then you just go for one of the younger SMGs. I think you do check off a lot of the boxes. And let's just say that, for example, let's just say that they go for somebody like Pentagram. I'm just throwing somebody out there out of the options that we listed, whether it's Pentagram, whether it's Venom or Capsule, Johnny, maybe even a Hixie, which I think is not as likely, but still possible. Maybe even a challenger player that has not been listed as of yet. Maybe they spot somebody. Maybe they go for somebody on the Minnesota Rocker bench, like a Fame or a Real, something like that. I think that you do have a very interesting roster moving into next year. Now, is it going to be a contender? Not necessarily, but for this new generation, if you will, for this new, piece moving into next year, I think that this is not a bad team at all. Now, what I want to do is bring up the Breaking Point roster builder, and I'll have this linked in the description. I know the stats do come from the prior year. ASIM and Clay were two players that were dropped, so the stats aren't going to tell you exactly what you want to see. They're not going to be unbelievable, but considering that these two guys, were dropped, Temp has some great numbers, so it kind of evens out. You do expect for ASIM and Clay to be better moving into next year. I especially think that Clay will be much better statistically than this for next season. So at the very least, you're looking at a 0.99 overall, a 1 and a hard point. S&D definitely could use some work. The same thing for the control, but it's not a bad team. Again, a lot of this would fall on these two players specifically. A lot would fall onto their plates to play well, but this is something that I think, like I said, Las Vegas, this would be my rebuild. This is what I would instantly go for if I was the Las Vegas Legion moving into MW2. You grab these two guys alongside of Temp, and then you really pick the top of the litter when it comes down to the other SMG alongside somebody like ASIM, which is going to be very, very important. But again, I would go young in this case. I gotta say, that's pretty fun. We got to play a little bit of GM, if you will, for the Las Vegas Legion. My roster: ASIM, Clay, Temp, and then one of the other SMGs that are out there, as we said, the Pentagrams, Venom, Capsule, Johnny, Hixie, Wardy. I mean, if some of these guys don't get grabbed up in challengers, the Vehicle, for example, even if a few other guys don't fall through, like a Havoc, for example, I think would be great. If a Kismet, for example, wouldn't get an opportunity from NYSL for whatever reason, maybe you give him a call. That is what my roster would look like for the Las Vegas Legion moving into next year. And like I said, I think they're actually pretty decent. Like I said, I don't think it's like a top 5, top 4 roster, but it's definitely not the bottom of the CDL, at least in my eyes. But guys, feel free to let me know what your thoughts are on my roster that I made due to this roster builder. Again, I'll have this link down in the description. You guys can have some fun with this. Lay out your 4-man lineup for the supposed Las Vegas Legion moving into next year. Also, let me know down in the comments, who would you guys go with when it comes down to this team? Who would you put alongside of somebody like Temp? Would you grab Clay? Would you grab Krim? Who would you grab for your SMGs? Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and we'll see you back here on the channel very soon for more reaction videos, more off-season roster mania videos, and also some MW2 content to come out soon, as the very interesting release of multiplayer and all that stuff is starting to come out throughout this week. So like I said, guys, I'll check you out back here on the channel very soon, and thanks so much for tuning in.